shared so far. And as you do the polls, we're going to go through some housekeeping. A couple different things. About all, if not most of you, should have received design kits. So I got some messages of, what's this random art kit you sent us? Yes, we are not doing arts and crafts projects per se, but a big part about design thinking is creating physical representations of your innovation. And that is kind of another round. So this first round of interviews that we do is truly just empathy, understanding the problem, the way your user sees it, their worldview, their perspective, what's important to them. Then we do another round of interviews where, because remember I said this first round, tell them nothing about your product, ask them no questions about your product. It's really just understanding the problem from their perspective. Well, we do another round of interviews, and that's where we go into our product. And that's kind of where we show them kind of like what's a concept called Wizard of Oz, where they're walking through interacting with your project and your product or service, and they're getting some real-time feedback from them, right? Because I can tell you I'm going to do anything, but watching how I operate in that environment, my thought process, what I'm thinking about and saying and doing, you get so much more data out of that. And so that is something that we'll do. So you can set your kits aside. We'll be using some of that, like the Post-its. We're going to use some of that today and next week. And then by this time next week, by Wednesday's class and the following week, that's when we're going to start going into our prototyping. Today's define, then ideate, then prototype. So once we get to the prototyping stage, that's when we'll be using those other tools. So we want to make sure you have them so we can start pulling from those. If this would have been in person, this would have been just kind of an art table in the back of the room that we'd have set up and pull from. But we were trying to think of ways to make sure we can mimic a lot of our in-person engagement. And one of the biggest benefits is being able to get the feedback, real-time feedback from other participants in this space. And so that's kind of why we went ahead and send that out. So if you have not, for those that just joined, we have a poll going on. So either depending upon your structure, you either have to click on settings or look at the bottom of your screen and you'll see poll. Please click on and complete the poll just so we can kind of know what to do, where everybody is with everything. So for everyone who joined us later, welcome, welcome. Hope you guys had a great extended weekend and you got a chance to kick back and relax and to catch up on some of your deliverables, your assignments. Speaking of assignments, Katie, how are we doing on assignments? Where are we? Or is everybody grinding and submitting, getting some great feedback?
So we have some people who are champs, who are completing almost everything and doing a great job. We have a couple who are just kind of bare boning the answers. And so there's not a whole lot there, but they're still doing it. And then we have some people who aren't really submitting at all. And that might be because they're playing catch up a little bit. Or for other reasons, but yeah, so it's a mixed bag.
Okay, so talk to me, y'all. We had this conversation last week about y'all holding your assignments hostage. What is the story? What is the holdup? What is the problem? Anybody, somebody?
I feel good. I think we know who we are. So I just want to start it and say, I'm feeling okay. I'm hoping tonight will clarify a few things, but I'm good.
Okay, you're feeling good. Okay. And anyone else who has not submitted assignments, is it because of lack of understanding, confusion, or is it just life happening and you just not getting to it? Like being real, we understand all of that. So I need to know where you are to know how we can assist you.
Sorry, that was Ines. Ines, I'm playing catch up and I should be caught up by Saturday.
Okay.
This is Marnisha. I'm playing catch up too. Life is happening with work and business and everything else going on. I do have things like written down on paper. I just have to transfer into the system.
Okay.
I'm having a bit of a problem with the shareholders matrix. and the mapping.
Okay. All right. Okay, so Sylvia, have you connected with Katie on that to get some clarification, or?
No, I have not, but I'll get with her as soon as possible on that one.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else having any other hiccups or need clarification or support on? I can't help you with the life happens because that's just life, but you know, we can get you there. But we just, as long as we know it's not, you know, a problem, like in terms of that we can support you on, we understand life happens and we understand catch up. I just don't want you guys, because right now we're at week 3. And if, you know, we don't want, like I said, the way the pace is going to pick up and things are building upon each other, it's going to feel a bit overwhelming, right? Not that it's undoable, it's just going to feel overwhelming. And it's going to be hard to take advantage of the real-time activities that we're doing if you don't have, like, one of the things we're going to talk about today is what to do with your interview data. And if you haven't done interviews and you have no data, then you can't really like take advantage of it. And it's easy to listen, but I don't know if you've ever tried to like watch a cooking show and then cook. It makes sense when they're doing it, but then when you sit down to do it, it's like, wait, what happened? And so what we're trying to prevent is that, so you can actually take action with the things that we're giving you in real time in the class, so we can provide you support. With your interviews, I've seen, has everyone done the polls? How many people? Okay, it looks like we have maybe 1 or 2 more. Okay. All right, so I'm looking at, well, I'm waiting, I'll wait a little bit longer for the polls to close, but it's looking like a lot of you have not done your interviews. So some thoughts on that. Is it you have not finished your interview questions? Like, I don't know. And we can, you know, I'm not here to call anybody out. This is truly just trying to figure out how we can support you. So for those of you who have not submitted your interview questions and done your interviews, are you struggling with putting the questions together, or is this part of the catch-up thing that we haven't gotten to the stuff before, so therefore we haven't gotten to the interviews? Like, where are we on that?
So I uploaded my questions and I started calling the people on my list. So I have a few interviews lined up, but it's not until like Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay.
So I'll have them done by our next class, but that's why I did start talking to them though.
Okay. Okay. So you still have them staged up. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. Looks like everyone did the poll. So let's look at the poll results. I got it out. All right. So we're looking about 56% hasn't done interviews, 11% has done 1 to 4 interviews, and about 33% have done 5 or more. So that's good. And so, like I said, for that larger category that haven't done, I know, Tisha, what you said, anybody else, who, for those of you that, you know, are still kind of working through your interview questions, or I'm sorry, for those of you that fit in the none category, what's your story? Just talk to me. Is it like, are you kind of in the same bucket as Atisha, where you've scheduled them and you just haven't started them yet? Or is it you still working through your questions? Well, where are we on that?
I have a couple of reschedules, you know, with scheduling conflicts or a couple of cancels. So I'm hoping to get to them, the rest of them next week.
Okay. All right. So we got some scheduling. And I know it was a holiday weekend. I was hoping that some of y'all can do it during the holiday weekend, kind of catch people as you're around. And I know that might have been challenging. So if that delayed it, I understand that. Again, it's really just just like helping me understand like what's going on. So for the rest of anybody else have any other, like, so far what I'm hearing, almost everyone who has not done their interviews, it's more of a scheduling. Like, you're good on your questions, you're good on, like, you know, what you need to do. It's just getting people scheduled is the holdup. Is there anybody that falls in that have not done my interview questions and that is not the case? Okay. So for everyone else, I'm assuming you have not submitted your interview questions, even though you are ready to do your interviews, because go ahead, Chris.
I have my interview questions. I have like 10 of them, but they're on a Google document. So do I like extract the information and put it on like a Word document, or can you accept Google?
So from Google, you should be able to download as PDF and then upload onto our platform that PDF, and we can review it from there.
That's right. Thank you. My bad.
You can do that now while I'm running my mouth.
We'll do it now.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else? All right. I'm not stalling. I really just want to make sure y'all are good. And I know people don't always want to speak up. So I just want to make sure like it's not nothing else holding you back. Okay. So with that being said, what we're going to do, we're going to shift gears a little bit from what we originally had planned to make sure that we are kind of in the spaces that we need to do. For those of you who have done some interviews, have you already started to synthesize your interviews? Like organize them kind of in some of the ways that we've talked about?
Yes and no.
Okay.
That's something I'm a little stuck on is, now I have, like you said, now I've got all this data and I'm going, oh, okay, the common threads I kind of see, and I'm not sure how to, the word you just said, I haven't done that. What'd you say?
Synthesize. Okay. So here is, hold on, let me get my screen share going. We're going to do this in some breakout rooms because we're going to separate the people who haven't done their interviews and those who have, so we can kind of make sure we're giving you guys some targeted support. But just so that everyone's on the same page of some of that. And then, so that the plan is today, I'm sorry. Dell, did you have something to say? Were you starting to say something earlier and I cut you off?
Yeah, I was gonna ask about the synthesizing of it. You were talking about putting them either within the matrix or the quadrant, the 4 spots, right? Is that what we're talking about?
No, that is your stakeholders.
Okay.
So if you haven't done your stakeholders, that is the
That's
quadrants and the sheet. That is separate. Those are, that's essentially you organizing who you're going to contact, like the groups of people and their priorities in terms of who you're going to reach out to do these interviews.
Oh, okay. Got you. All right. Just wanted to make sure because I didn't know if we were supposed to, because I did them. I just didn't know how to categorize them. That's why I was asking. Thank you.
You did the stakeholder analysis or you did the interviews?
Oh, both.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. Okay. So what we will do, so this, we'll do this the second half. I want you guys to kind of like, this is kind of, I wanted to see where everybody was and we'll focus on this on the second half, but these are some of the links that we'll be downloading. And I want you guys, you can access all this on the course sites for today. And so we'll be doing that. And then this is going to take us the process of what we do with our interview data. And so I can leave this here for a second, but like I said, it's on our core, the link directly to this will be on our course sites and how you kind of access it. And I'll demonstrate it here as well. But that'll be for the second half of the class. So what we are going to do, I see someone still writing, so I'll wait before I switch screens, waiting. Like I said, it's on your course site, so you can just log in there and click on the link. You don't have to write down this link here. So what we have essentially been looking at, and we talked about empathy, and I won't go into the spiel about empathy and its foundation to everything that we do in terms of creating a product and how we try to, and I said this before, the whole gamut of what we've been doing thus far has really just been working on understanding people in the context of the problem that we're trying to address, right? Because if you're not solving a problem or addressing a need, you don't have a business. You have a very expensive hobby. And so trying to really identify those pieces for our entrepreneurs is really important. And so it's really about what they do, why they do it, and how they feel about things, how they think about the world and its meaning to them, and how they and how we can begin to develop like that empathy is observing, talking to them, interacting with them, and engaging them. And so that's really what this whole process is about. And so today, like I said, the second half, we're going to go into define, but I wanted to, okay. So what we talked about was synthesizing. We did an exercise last class where we start to look at the information that we're collecting. And so when we talked about structuring our interview protocol, some of the things that we talked about was the interview flow. So we talked about, you know, you do your pleasantries, like, hi, my name is, I do, you do, did you have a good day? You know, that type of stuff. Some of us collected some biographical information. You might not have asked them directly, but you kind of pay attention. Were they young? Were they old? Were they, you know, students? Were they seniors? Were they, you know, that type of stuff. And some of that is just to kind of help us notice like, hey, all of my younger people said this, or all of my women said this, right? Like, and that, again, part of this is really just helping us tailor and target who our audience is, right? Because we always start really broad, but then you realize in that broader category, there's a more niche category of people you don't have to work so hard to sell yourself to, because they identify with your problem space. And the fact that you're solving this problem for them, they are so grateful they're willing to pay for it, right? And that's what we're trying to identify. I'm not saying that the other groups of people might not have people who occasionally, or for, you know, on a project or a case by case, you know, basis, might also be in that same position, but just trying to identify if we can find that group that we can replicate members of that group. And every time they come across us and the problem that we're solving, they click, it gets it, they get it, and they're ready to engage, right? And so that's how we begin to synthesize. So one of the things that we said in terms of synthesizing, and so this was one of the approaches that we mentioned, is you can kind of break across. So if you look at, you know, each of the persons you interviewed, what were some of the things that they were saying in terms of, you know, were they mentioning a feeling, something that they had to do, you know, an influence, a pain point? And we used another chart also last time. And basically you could just kind of take a sheet of paper, you break out into, and Dale, this might've been also what you were talking about, the quadrants. I forgot we did mention quadrants on this before. You break it out. They said this, they do this, they felt this, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, my overall like observations, right? They, you know, the pain points, goals, like that type of stuff, right? So you can, whichever way floats your boat, it's just helping you break out those interviews. So if I have 10 interviews, right, and my 10 interviews, all like my people, these are the tasks that they did. This is their feelings in this, you know, as it pertains to this subject matter. Here is, you know, the influences in this subject matter, right? I can kind of go through and synthesize all that data by clustering and grouping the things that I'm seeing and coming out of that, right? And that's what we're going to do a little bit more today. And we're going to talk about exactly how to do that. But in order to do that, you got to organize your notes a little bit. You got to kind of figure out, like, I don't know about you, but everyone takes their interview data notes differently. So you might have it scribbled across 10 sheets of paper, you might have it on recordings, however it is, like you got to get that together before we can kind of start this exercise. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend some time, I'm trying to think what's the best way to break out. So what we will do is we have some breakout rooms, and what we're going to do is we're going to let you guys kind of choose what breakout room you feel like you fall into. So if you haven't done your interviews and you kind of want some support refining your questions, or even if you just want to use some of this time that, you know, and it'll say 30 minutes, we might not go the whole 30 minutes. It really just depends on, you know, how we're doing in our rooms. So don't use that as I can lollygag for 20 minutes and do something for 10, kind of a framework. But it's really going to be in your breakout rooms if your issue is scheduling. can you use some of that time to like sit here and send those emails, send that text, make that phone call, whatever, to schedule those people, right? Like if that's been, I haven't had time to schedule, can we use some of that time for that? Or I'm unsure about some of my interview questions, right? Like, because, you know, I looked at my interview questions for one kind of a stakeholder, and then I realized that I'm not actually getting the things I need out of it, you know, versus when I look at the other type of stakeholder, or I ended up having to move some stakeholders around, and now it's completely messed up my interview flow, right? So if just getting that feedback on support, we're going to put you guys kind of together to use that time. And then, and we have other rooms, I'm trying to get to, and the other room will kind of have, an opportunity to start thinking about how do we synthesize and organize, you know, our interview data results type of stuff, right? And so how do we kind of flag those? Go ahead, Lisa.
So just realizing now, I only interviewed potential clients, like friends, family. So is that okay? Or I'm looking and hearing you, I'm like, oh gosh, I would so have to pick different questions and come at it a different way if I want to interview some of my other stakeholders. So is that something to even work on tonight, or just not even add to my, because I am a little overwhelmed with the data I already got? Just stick with.
Well, I think so one of the things we mentioned at the last class is I really do want you guys to get an opportunity to, by the time we're done with this round of empathy interviews, interviewing your target audience and someone and one other stakeholder group, right? And so even if you're overwhelmed, I want you to get that contrast, because it's going to matter in how you start to think about the solution. And so I'm not saying you need to do like someone from each of your categories, but you need to have, you know, one or two people at least from that other category. And mind you, this is a slim down approach. Any other groups where you're doing design thinking, their minimum is 100. And so you haven't scratched the surface if you haven't done 100. So I understand it feels like a lot, but this is what it takes for you to really understand what your users need, right? And so because there's so many facets to your user, like it really takes this level of engagement. And I understand, you know, you guys had a week, so I didn't expect you to do 100 interviews in a week, but I do want you to have, you know, like your main audience, but at least from another group of stakeholders as well. So you have that point of contrast.
Okay, thank you. And I can manage that in the next few days. So, okay, good.
Okay, yeah. All right. So what we're going to do, like I said, we're going to go into some breakout rooms really quickly. And you can choose your breakout room, and we'll be in there kind of, like I said, giving you guys some support to kind of help guide you through. JB, I can actually see. Where is it? Did you open the breakout rooms yet, JB?
Not yet, but I can if you want me to.
Oh, yes, please.
Okay.
Sorry. I was like, I don't see them. I didn't say anything. You're right.
So you all get to choose which room. So I'm going to open them and then you choose which one to be in.
Say it again.
I said just letting them know to choose their own room.
Yeah. And so, yes, please choose your rooms. And we will, like I said, be in there kind of giving you guys some support. And then, like I said, we'll kind of come back together and go back through the next part of our design thinking cycle is define. But I did want to make sure we're good before we wrap up on empathy and go forward. So breakout rooms are open. Please go to your rooms and we will join you there.
And one last thing, maybe. I'm sorry, Chris. Just, we have a new person. Do we just say hi? Do we?
Sorry, yes.
Okay.
My apologies. Varsha, if you could introduce yourself with who you are, why, what were the questions, y'all? Who you are?
I don't think I've ever seen Patrick either. I don't know.
Who you are.
What you hope to get out of it,
Yes.
What would the best possible thing be or something?
Yes, so who you are, what you hope to get out of this, and if everything goes your way, kind of in your wildest dreams, what is like the best possible thing that could happen? Thank you.
Okay, sure. Hi, everyone. So my name is Varsha. I'm a junior now at the University of Florida. I'm actually a pre-medical student going into medical school soon, but I really love entrepreneurship and I've always loved research and academia. And a lot of my research focuses on improving patient outcomes. So my venture, it's called HX Card, and it's trying to solve the problem of like a decentralized healthcare system and making sure that our patient data stays in one place. So an organization venture essentially. And I started this idea kind of in the beginning of January. It was originally just for women's health, and I decided to expand upon that now. So hopefully through this program, I'm able to start from, I guess, the foundation, build it up, make sure I have all my research, talk to my stakeholders, and make sure this is something that they can actually use. In my wildest dreams, hopefully this is something that I could implement. Even at one hospital system, I would be more than grateful to help like any patients at all, because I think our healthcare system is such a great thing, but there's a lot of obstacles we face that can be solved. But yeah.
Awesome. Welcome, welcome. Patrick, we have not heard from you, and Lisa made me realize that if you can do the same, a quick introduction of yourself, just like Varsha did. Hello. Okay, I'm not sure if Patrick is having audio issues. So we will continue. Okay. All righty. So I will check in with Patrick and see if we can get hear from him later. Right now we are back into breakout rooms. So choose your room and get to partying.
Oh, I just had a quick question. Sorry. I see in the breakout rooms that there says 1 or more interviews completed, and then the synthesis conversation. Just off of my, I guess, based off of my interviews, which room would I be a part of? I guess the 1 or more interviews completed.
Have you done 1 or more interviews?
Yes, I've done. I got 10, at least 10 right now.
Okay. All right, then you can be in the synthesis conversation.
And can we move rooms if we feel the need or no?
Yes.
I'm going to start with the 1 or more because I don't know if I'm ready for synthesis. Okay. Bye.
Oh, Patrick, you finally unmuted yourself. And now everyone's gone into the room. So we will get you to introduce yourself when we all rejoin.
Dr. Wanda, I'm not seeing the option to move. Oh, okay, wait, I think I see it up here. Never mind.
Okay.
Never mind, I don't. I'm trying to find the breakout rooms. Oh, wait, here it is. Never mind. Thanks.
You're welcome. Sylvia, you good? We can't hear you. Your sound is off. It looks like you're still connecting RDO. Yeah, I still can't hear you.
I moved her into a room. I think she had two.
Oh, okay.
So I moved both to the same room.
Okay, I see. So she dialed in audio on one and has visual on the other. Okay. That's strange that she's okay. There she go. All right. And Patrick. Okay. All right. All right. How did we do?
That was so fun.
It was excellent. It was, I mean, really just to bounce it off of each other and think about what everybody else is doing. It was awesome. I think it was an awesome session.
That is awesome. I'm glad that we paused because, like I said, this is something I think that's really important. Is because sometimes you know what I'm saying, it's hard to kind of ask the questions, but as you're in a group and you're seeing other people ask the questions and you're realizing kind of where you are in your thinking, and so I got to kind of get a chance to do float between two rooms, and so some of the folks who'd already kind of knocked out some really good interviews, we started to think about how we start organizing that stuff. And some of those who are still kind of working on getting their interviews together, kind of thinking through how do we kind of get some things lined up. So I'm super excited what kind of the progress that we're making. I made a mention in one of the groups, I kind of want to make sure I mention here in total. How many of you have interviewed someone in your cohort? Okay, that's 2. Take advantage of your cohort. Almost everyone in this cohort falls into a stakeholder in one of those categories for you, right? So take advantage of your cohort. Like, it's 13 people in this room right now. That's at least 10 people at minimum, 10 people that you can interview that will get you 10 more steps and 10 more interviews, right there. You could say, hey, class starts at 6:30. Can we meet at 6? Can we meet, or 5:45, whatever it is. That's an interview right after class. It's a little late, but can we meet right after class? That's an interview, right? You meet someone right before, right after. We meet twice a week. That's 4 interviews you knocked out in a week, right? Take advantage of your classmates, because even though we've been here chopping it up, we have to put ourselves in the seat of, okay, if you're asking me as a stakeholder, well, then here's my views on this, because I'm not just here trying to give you guys, feedback on how to do it, but as someone who, you're trying to solve a problem for, I can give you some real good feedback on that. So please take advantage of each other. Like, it's going to be really important. So give me some more feedback on that last round. Like, what else do we feel like we need to tackle? What were some of the best takeaways from that? Not everybody at once.
I mean, I still feel like I might need a room of the synthesizing, like, what do I do with the data I got from my few that I did?
Yeah, so we're going to cover some of that today.
For the second half, you said.
Yeah, this is what we're going to tackle. I wanted the people who already have it to kind of have some real time to start organizing, because synthesizing is kind of a 2-part activity. And so we're going to talk about that today, and we're going to spend some time kind of focusing on kind of an exercise in that space. But it'll be just more so you start to understand, because sometimes I found with our groups, knowing what you're going to do with the data helps you look at how you're collecting the data a little differently. Does that make sense? Okay, so let me get my screen back into screen share. Oh, wait, hold on. So one of the things, one of the things I wanted to show that we talked about last time, just to remind you guys, there's more than one way to approach this. Oops, here we go.
I just had a quick question. Is it okay if, like, our interviews are surveys, like they're asking the same questions, but the response is like if you send out like a mass survey to people, would that still give you some sort of like tangible data that we could count as an interview?
Chris, you can answer that question. We just had a long conversation about that.
I was told not to do that, that you would have to have actual communication with them verbally instead of having a mass.
I didn't say not to do it. I would prefer that in addition to that, you actually talk to people, for the simple fact that there is so much more that if you ask me a question about how I feel about something, I will answer your question in written form. If you're talking to me, you might get a story that elicits a lot more information that you're not getting out of the survey. So while we do appreciate survey data, and I do want you guys to get more of that in this first round of getting empathy, it's really important that you connect with people and hear things, because there are questions that will come up that you didn't think of based upon how they are describing things. So so I think that's kind of important. So in your first round of interviews, I do want you to actually talk to people. And then, like I said, you can also do the survey data. Now, it can be vice versa. If you want to do survey data just to see, like, am I even asking the right kind of questions? And then based off of that, you tweak your questions and go back and interview people, that's fine. Or if you want to do interviews and then to see if, okay, based off of these interviews, I'm going to do some surveys to see how many more people feel like this, that's fine. But somewhere in that mix, I want you to talk to people.
Okay, sounds
And
good.
to piggyback on that, we had someone ask about doing like a scale, like a rating system, rate 1 to 10. And that is also, Wanda said last week to please not do binary, the yes, no, because you don't get that full story. With the ratings, it's similar. You get a little bit more information, but you're still not getting that story. And the goal is to really be able to put yourself in the shoes of the other person and to understand their perspective. So the ratings, I would recommend steering clear of as well. Wanda, how do you feel about that?
I agree. Again, this first round, you have to be able to understand the different dynamics, and there are things that people will say that will surprise you, and questions that you never thought to ask that will come up in these responses that will realize that, and there's been many times this has happened, and you set out to solve one problem, but as someone mentioned something, you realize there's actually a deeper problem that's unsolved. And then you take that and you ask all your other interviewees, and you realize that's actually the problem they care the most about. And that can cause a completely different pivot that you wouldn't know to ask if you don't have that opportunity to have that exploration. So, okay, so moving right along, and Varsha, did I answer your question?
Yes, you did.
Awesome. All right, so when it comes to the next steps, one of the things that we talked about before, and we started talking about at the beginning of this class, was as you're collecting your interview data, you can do it in multiple ways. And depending upon how you're doing your interviews, some people might not want you to record it. Sometimes you might catch someone in a grocery store line and you have to like memorize it and jump to your car and jot it down. So some of your interview responses might be on the back of a napkin. Some of them might be on whatever you captured on at the time. So the first thing you're going to do, if you have not, so some of you had very structured interviews and you were able to organize them in these empathy maps that we talked about last time. For some of you, that didn't work for you. You just have a sheet of paper or whatever napkin, and you got all of your responses in these random places. So the first part of synthesizing it is organizing it. And so one of the things that we talked about was we could do it, we could use something, like this that we talked about before, where you can kind of organize it, you know, who you give it, you can either, you know, organize these different things in terms of, okay, these are the things I did, here's their feelings, influence, and pain points. You can use something like this, which is kind of a similar structure, thinking and feeling, hearing, seeing, saying, pain, gain, whatever it is, the first thing you have to do is organize it. So I pulled this up from last week's class to remind you guys that we did talk about that. So please refer to last week's slides if you want different ways of thinking about, because each one of those, and I know some people get frustrated, it's like, just tell me to do one thing. I will never do that, because entrepreneurship does not work that way. There are many ways to solve a problem. You have to find the way that suits you best for what you have going on at that time. And so that is always going to be our approach. I'm going to always show you, here are all the ways you can try it. Try one. If you're struggling to make it fit, try something else until you find what suits you best. Sorry, I'm trying to share my screen and talk at the same time, and it's not working. Here we go. All right. So where we started talking about, so one of the things you want to think about when you have all this interview data, say you have like 10, interviews, one of the first things you want to do is organize your interviews, right? And so one of the first things you want to start off to organize is identify like your biographical information, right? And so if you have them each on, say, separate sheets of paper or separate sections, at the top or somewhere around each one of those interviews, write down like, Black female, age 30, profession, if you know that information, or like whatever that kind of information, because sometimes really interesting, you'll notice all of the women are saying one thing, right? Or all of the people in this profession, right, are saying one thing, right? And so I've had someone, she was doing hair, and her product was a tech, in terms of hair care, and she really noticed the people that struggled the most was her busy professionals. And so she started noticing by their careers, a lot of the responses were the same and their needs were the same. And that's how she found her niche, was like, this is the audience that need me more than anyone else, right? Like there was the audience that it pained them to look at 10 hours of YouTube videos to figure out how to get ready for dinner date, right? Like, and so like that's how she was able to find her audience. So that kind of biographical information, if you can abstract it, and sometimes we don't necessarily ask, but if you can kind of like pull it out of the things that you're seeing, just kind of flag it a little bit, and then you can just look and see if there's any themes that are emerging and that from some of these common groups. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but you just kind of want to pay attention. And so I was telling Chris, because like his stuff is like artists, so you can, in addition to biographical information, you could put visual artists, right, for the first one. The second one might be a musician, right? Is there any kind of themes where initially you're saying you're focusing on artists, but if you're noticing there's a reoccurring theme with your visual artists in terms of there's a huge unmet gap, in your target audience, this is your niche group that you could probably dive into, right? So that's the first thing you want to do, is organize that. And then you want to kind of go through. And so what we were talking about a little bit in the synthesizing group, Dell was talking about some of the things that he was asking people. They were saying, I love this, I hate this. And I'm like, that's a feeling. So you can put, question one, here's kind of how they felt, right? But sometimes our questions are getting more than one response. I love when I have to do this task, or every time I do this task, I get super frustrated. You get a feeling and you get the tasks that are getting done. So you put, that question, and then you list out how everyone responded to that question in terms of their feelings. That same question, what are the tasks that they listed out that they had to do, right? And so you can kind of start to see a correlation, right? So that's kind of one way to organize it. The way that you could probably also organize it is you can just go question by question. Question one, here are my 10 responses to question one. Question two, so you open up a clean sheet of paper and you just go question, look at all your responses to question one, and you jot down some notes. All your responses to question two, jot down some notes. And so then you can evaluate question by question. Now, if question one mentions some things about how do you feel about something, and question four, then you can flag those. Under these questions, here's where they talk about their feelings. Under these questions, here's what they talk about their tasks. In these questions, I can go through and highlight the pain points that was mentioned throughout, the overall goals, right? Before you can start to do that next step, you have to figure out an organization tactic, because you have to be able to look through these notes quickly and figure out what are some of the common things that are emerging, because that's what we're going to try to keen in on, right? As you're talking to people, what's being said over and over and over again, right? What are the things that they're excited about? What are the things that they're frustrated about? What are the things that, they love about this space, but what are the things they feel that are missing? What's influencing, right? What are the things, right? We're trying to identify that from what we extract from your conversation. Now, if you've had these conversations, if you've done some of these interviews and you're finding it very hard to do some of this, there might be a flaw in your interview questions. And you might have to go back and say, am I asking the right questions? Because if I'm really, really struggling in being able to partition this kind of information out of my interview questions, revisit your interview questions, right? And see where you can dig in a little deeper. And this is kind of where we push back on asking some of these yes or no questions, because that doesn't really tell you how they're feeling. And you don't really know the tasks that they're getting done, right? And you don't really know how to abstract this stuff if you're not getting that additional underlying information. And so that is really important. So I really want you guys to really kind of think through and really spend some time first organizing it. And so empathy was us gathering this information. I'm sorry, before we went to empathy, we had a process that's actually not part of design thinking. It's just something that I do here in terms of your problem statement. And I think we do the important reason why I added this on to this class, because sometimes we get lost in our own thoughts of why am I even doing this? Like, how do I see the problem right now, right? And so this is, remember we talked about early on, about before you engage in this entrepreneurship journey, you have to first assess your own bias, your own understanding of this space. So the Jim can't read, right? What's going on with Jim? What is Jim's goal? What do you see, right? Why are you even diving into this, right? How do you see the problem? And then once you have that laid out, you go to your users, right? And you find out, now, what is their worldview? How do they see the problem? What is the problem they actually see, right? And that's what we just did with our interviews. The next step of design thinking is define. We're redefining that first problem that we talked about from the perspective of the user, right? Now that we got, some really good insight from them, we're revisiting the problem space and we're really honing in, well, what do they see? And how do they see it? And why, what's important, what's really pissing them off, and what's making them feel like they can fly? This is the stuff that we're trying to abstract to them. So we're going from our worldview to their worldview to make sure we're solving the right problems, right? And I hate that this class is feeling a little lecturous today, but it's really kind of important that we get through this so you guys are kind of getting through the things that are important to you. So one of the things that we do in this space is called affinity diagramming. And so with that, it's really about taking this information and putting them into clusters so we can begin to understand how we make sense of this data. And I'm going to switch over so you guys can see a quick video that explains this.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about affinity clustering. It's a pretty big title for a pretty simple concept. Affinity clustering is sorting ideas by the ones that are more like each other than not. It's like one of these things goes with another. It's sorting through a lot of stuff into piles or into groups. Why do we need to do this? In design thinking and innovation programs, you're constantly creating large lists of things. Customer complaints or pain points, customer quotes, ideas or concepts from a brainstorm. You could have a complete list of products in an industry, right? These large lists and our nature of creating them when we're working on an unstructured project is the reason we have all these sticky notes and why you see sticky notes all the time in design thinking and innovation projects. So affinity clustering is the first technique or method to start making sense out of those big, long lists, okay? And our brains are kind of natural at grouping and clustering things when we're overwhelmed with too much stuff, okay? So how does affinity clustering work? It's a really, it's an intuitive heuristic type process. There's no, decision tree for making a decision. What you want to do is get a feel for separating these ideas into clusters or into different piles, okay? So you're going to have some activity, usually from a brainstorm, analysis of customer video. You'll have a large list of things, often on different sheets of paper. Now, this is another reason why we do lots of sticky notes, to keep things separate so they can be organized and sorted easily. You'll have this big list, and what you do is you pick up the first one and you ask, is this anything like that's already out here? And of course, you haven't placed any. So what do? You make that group 1. The second one is either like that or it's different. All right, put it over there. Third one, now is it like the, oh, I got 3 groups now. Oh, that one's definitely like that. Okay. That's how you get through it. And you do it with a group. And every once in a while, you'll be doing it and you're like, oh, those 2 are really different than those other ones. And it'll create a 4th group or a 5th group, right? So it's a imprecise process, but as you start to sort things, you get a feel for what these groups are. The next thing to do is don't label them group 1, group 2, group 3. Give them a name that actually means something that characterizes what those ideas or what those comments are about, what those individual elements are about. And try to pick ideas that make you remember that set of things, okay? Once you have that structure, now you have an ability to ask, well, are some of these better ideas than others? Is one of these areas or types of things a priority for us? Maybe we write down those 6 or 8 groups that come out of it and ask people to do a survey of which are the most important things for us to solve for first, right? So that structure allows you to start working on them in smaller batches, understand something about your problem or your challenge. I have an example here. Let me show you. Here's a real one. So this was a brainstorm on potential phrases for a Google AdWords campaign on a hiring platform that focuses on the skills the candidate has, not their resume. And so all the green notes are ideas for those ad campaigns. See the talent for yourself. Turn your text job posting into a compelling video profile, right? And so there's probably what, 30 or 40 of those green notes. And then, so those were just done all at once. And then the team kind of said, well, what are phrases that are more like each other? And so now the yellow notes are the names of those clusters. So this one's about guarantee. So not a lot of ideas in the guarantee. This is the other thing that a clustering allows you to do. It's like, wow, we didn't get many ideas in here, but I like that notion that the title of it, let's fill that out with 20 more ideas or 10 more ideas, right? And so you can kind of see where your ideas are. And then while you're naming things, somebody says, how come we don't have anything that's more about this or this idea? And you can open up a whole new category that you weren't thinking of before. So this is kind of like bottom-up organizing that then you can go top-down for action. So this is an example, just a process that happens over and over and over again in design thinking work. Okay. So this is a great way to find structure in any sort of qualitative data, right? Quantitative data sorts itself numerically, but qualitative data, quotes, ideas, how do you organize them? Lots of times you organize them by theme or group or characteristic. You can sort 10 or more things of anything. So again, look for opportunities in your work where you've created a large list of things to sort them and then get insight from that. And I've already gone over things you can organize: pain points, ideas, customer quotes, products, etc. Affinity clustering is a core method of design thinking because we're constantly trying to dimension and structure the very unstructured problem we're trying to solve. Give it a try and good luck with it.
All righty. So that hopefully helped lay the groundwork. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. I'm going to hand it to Katie for a second.
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about a show and tell interview. A show and tell interview.
Stop. Okay. Sorry about that. 1 second, Lisa. I'm going to let Katie jump in, and then Lisa, I'm going to take your question. Go ahead, Katie.
So I recently did a vision board goal exercise, and we did the affinity clustering. It was like a brain dump to start, and we wrote all the different ideas that we had on Post-it notes, and then they made me create these header Post-it notes. And so one was like a star, and one was a square, and one was a circle. So it wasn't really anything real. And then at the end, after we had made our groups, we had organized them according to, you know, what seemed like it went together. We actually replaced those like abstract images with words that made sense, with a real heading. And it was so helpful. Things came out of that that I would have never, like, I would have given it the wrong heading had I given it a heading in the beginning. So I just wanted to share that because I found that to be really helpful during that process. So another tip or another idea for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. Affinity clustering is very important in this process, and just in this process, because like I said, oftentimes when we're doing interviews, we're so knee deep in kind of extracting this information. There's so much that we miss. And as you start to go across your different interviews, you're like, wait a minute, I've seen this before, right? And so that's why I said the first step is organizing, right? Once you get this organized and you get, you know, some highlighters or some crayons, whatever it is, start to find those common themes, right? When these themes start to emerge, right? If you see something that looks interesting, like, man, that's a very interesting thought, like, or something that's exactly what I thought they felt about this, flag it. That becomes a theme. And then every time someone else, like, so a feeling where everyone is either frustrated about something, right? You find like, you know, a theme in terms of their feelings about X. And then all your sticky notes under that start to reflect that, right? And you might see a theme that emerges and another theme, and you'd be like, that's kind of the same thing, they just said it differently. You can merge those two groups, right? And then you really start to go, and so you don't start off right now. So when you start off with affinity clustering, everything kind of is separate. And that's why we gave you like this whole thing of Post-its, because you're going to really use those. So you really want to kind of think of these themes that emerge as you're kind of doing your interviews, as you're analyzing your interviews, and you're kind of seeing all this stuff organized. So as you guys are going through your interview data, I want you to think through, like, have a wall space, whatever it is. And as you're sitting there through, every time a new theme emerges, put it on a Post-it note. But as Katie says, don't think of the theme immediately. Just put the things together on their Post-it notes. And as you're putting them together, as you're putting them out there, then you put them together and you see what would I call this category, right? Out of this theme that came out and this theme and these 5 themes together, this actually looks like a box of X, right? And then you put box of X on that grouping, right? And then you move it around. We're like, yeah, this would be box of X if it wasn't for this one. So I'm gonna pull this one out because, you know, one of these things is not like the other, right? And then you're gonna just keep playing shuffle. And that's why we do the sticky notes, because instead of you having a sheet of paper where you Xing and crossing and you can't remember what's what, you put all your themes on separate sticky notes and you can reorganize them until they make sense. And then you start to see your groups clearly and the themes that are emerging clearly. How this feeds into what you do, as we move into thinking about the solution space next time, what we'll do is pull from these themes. And remember, we said before, if I interviewed 10 people and out of 10 people, they said these 5 common things, but these 3 seem to really kind of come across as a pain point, right? These 3 were like, if you solve this, you have definitely changed my life, right? Or these things are like, annoy the mess out of me. If someone can get rid of this, or I love this, right? Then you know, if you don't do anything else in your solution, those 3 features need to be a part of it. Those 3 things need to be interjected in some shape or form. That's how we use this to shape our direction on what our solution is. Are you actually solving a problem or meeting a need for your users? How do you know that, right? Because people can tell you anything, but if you're abstracting this from all the different things that I'm saying, and you can really key on that in terms of your problem solution fit, then you're knowing you're going in the right direction. And so, like I said, you place these on a loft surface. So for the next week, kind of identify your wall space that you have. Like, okay, this is my Post-it, circle as I'm trying to organize these things, right? And you could do this kind of as you get each of your interviews, or you want to wait till you get all of your interviews and you kind of go through and look for your themes. Just kind of pull these things out, have a process that works for you, shuffle, eliminate, kind of see the things that come. If certain things seem superficial, revisit that with your next round of interviews. Again, this is kind of your fact-finding journey. And then what we're going to do is have ways that we can share it with each other, so we can start to give you some of that feedback on like how to organize, what are some things emerging. So I want us to be able to share this so we can kind of, again, a lot of us are solopreneurs. And so as this group, we're providing that team support. So we are your support staff that is going to give you that feedback that you would have gotten if you had a whole team and company to work with. And so we'll try to break our larger affinity groups more than 10 or 12. So if you have a group where it's like 20 post-its in that group, that there's a subgroup somewhere in there that you would need to identify, right? If you have a post-it where it's one group, it could be an anomaly, an outlier, or irrelevant, or it might just be something that you just haven't explored enough, but you want to be able to kind of identify those things. And then after you get that, you review a diagram together. And like I said, we can spend some time doing that, give you that feedback when you guys submit, and we prioritize our affinity groups. Again, if you know, we try to see what are some of the major themes that are kind of emerging out of there. Rule of thumb is to give people an allocation of votes, and you don't necessarily have to do it that way because we don't have that kind of structure right now, but you want to kind of have an organized structure of kind of thinking through that. So what we're going to do, just because I'm sure you guys are sick of me talking, is I'm going to show you a tool that you can use. So I recommend the Post-its initially, because I think it's important to have it where you can shuffle through and kind of think through things in real time. Once you have that down, one way, because it's going to be hard for you to take a picture of your wall and your Post-it so we can see it, is I want to... So a tool that we've used in previous classes, just so we can especially help us kind of sort through things, is Miro. And so that link is in there. And so and I purposely haven't signed into this one so you can kind of see the process. So hopefully this doesn't sabotage me. Okay, yeah, so you can do sign in with Gmail if you have a Gmail. It makes it a little easier. And so Miro has boards, it's for brainstorming. I do it collaboratively. As I mentioned before, I'm an entrepreneur and my teams are virtual. And so we use Miro a lot when we want to have group brainstorming when we're not all in the same space. And so that is definitely a way to go. And so you can open up Miro, and then for this, I want you guys to use the Lotus diagram template. And so both links are on your form, and the Lotus diagram template is essentially just a bunch of Post-its. And so it's allowing you to simulate this same process, right? And so if we were to, and we're short on time, so I'm trying to think of how to do this next exercise. Okay, so what we might be able to do is, let's think through this first one together. And then, so let's think about this in terms of barriers to eating healthy, right? This is kind of a problem a lot of people face, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to generate some thoughts in terms of what are some of the barriers to eating healthy. Where is here? Should be able to get my link so I can share with you guys. One second. I don't want just the team, I want everyone to access. Okay. But I want you guys to start to think about what are some barriers to eating healthy. And we're just going to kind of, and I was trying to get it where I can just share and you can add it, but it's giving me a bit of a challenge on sharing this link. And I think it's because of the email that I signed into it with. So it's going to, okay, let me try this way. Chat. Yeah, let me know if you guys can access that link, and if we can, we'll try to do it that way. But in the meantime, just so we can kind of expedite this process. And you can delete all of this if you don't want to start off with a template. I just do it because it's easier. What are some barriers to eating healthy? Unmute, talk to me.
No time
Time.
for prepping fresh food.
All right, what are some other barriers?
Stress eating.
All right.
Consistency.
Financial.
Sorry.
If you have
You're
access,
good.
go ahead and hop in and start adding to the Post-its so we can just kind of populate them as much as we can. What did you, someone said financial? Y'all, I'm an engineer because I can't spell, so don't mind my misspell words. All right. What are some other barriers to eating healthy?
Consistency.
It sounded good on Monday, but by Friday, I'm a different person.
If I may ask, so I signed up, I went in, I got an account. How do I get to you?
The link I put in the chat.
Oh, through that. I missed that because I was trying to set up over here. Thank you.
So what are some other barriers? So you should be able to, if you guys trying to figure out how to navigate, you can just double click on the Post-it and just start typing.
Calorie counting.
All right, what else?
I don't know how you would word this, but you know, they got food deserts where you can't really eat what you really would like to eat. So you have to eat what's available.
Yep. What are some other things? Y'all just keep putting them out there. At this time, the exercise is quantity, not quality. So we just, whatever idea you can think of, just throw it out there. Get this closed. All righty. All right, I'm seeing y'all getting active now. So we got picky palate, no cooking skills, convenience of bad food. Ain't that the truth? War, spoilage, laziness. I just don't feel like it sometimes. That is me many times. All right, what are some other things? All right, occupation, lack of planning. Sometimes we don't always have the facilities to cook or don't know how to cook.
What about time? I don't know. I was looking through it. I don't see nobody for time. Like time management. Sometimes we don't have the time to like eat healthy.
Sure, just add it on there. Even if someone put it, just add it again. Like whatever you think of, don't think about what's already on there. Just kind of add whatever comes to mind. And I'll show you the reason we do this in a minute. All righty.
They're having difficulty getting onto the to that page.
When you click on the link in the chat, what is it saying?
I was able to log in using my email. Oh, okay. Sorry, it just took a little longer.
Okay. No worries. All right. Someone brought a good point. Eating healthy ain't cheap. That is the truth. Any other barriers to eating healthy? You guys are coming up with some good stuff. All right, gonna take another minute and then we're gonna bring it in to kind of think through what do we do with this? I love it. Y'all are filling it up. All right, so I see a few people typing in your last ones. Okay, so what we're gonna do now, so if you think about the question that we're asking, if this was kind of you going through your interview stuff, right? And if that was kind of your theme, right? The problem you're trying to solve. So if the problem we were trying to solve is, you know, barriers to eating healthy, and these are all the things that came out of our interview data, right? These are kind of the different thoughts that people kind of came out. We would then kind of, you know, we went through our interview data, we kind of made our markings, we pulled out these themes, and now we're going to try to figure out, you know, which ones, because right now it's a lot and it's a little overwhelming to kind of process it this way. And so this is why the affinity diagramming piece is really important. So what we do is, oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that. We take this information and the first thing we do is we try to find themes, right? And so we can say, I'm gonna make my cluster theme green. And so I'm gonna put a green one here and call it time, right? And so therefore, anything that has to do with time, I'm gonna bring it next to here. So if anybody see anything about time, drag that Post-it over here to time. So I saw this one. All right, and then I see another one on financial. So anything that has to do with cost, money, oops, sorry. We're gonna bring that over here. Let's see. What are some other themes that we see? Some like we're scanning over, what's some other themes that's popping up?
I see like location or transportation.
All righty, so
proximity, stuff like that.
All right, so let's add location. And I can actually move this a little higher up so we can have, oh, sorry, I did that. I ran away from you. Okay. All right, so we added location. So it's on the right of financial, a little further to the top if anybody's looking for location. And I'm gonna delete some of these empty ones so they're not just kind of in our way. All right. And so if you guys see some other themes, you can, create a green tab, and I just did green so we can find it, create another theme, and then all the ones around that theme, we'll move it over there. So this is a collaborative effort.
Without a quick tutorial, Wanda, how do you make a green one?
So to the left, you see where it has like the arrow, where it says select, and then so the one that looks like a Post-it sticky note, as soon as you click on that, the different colors will pop up. You click on green, drop it where you want it.
Oh, I did something.
And there's always an undo button.
What's the name of this template?
This is the Lotus template inside of Miro. So in your course sites, you'll see, or the first link will be a Miro link, and the second one should be the one to the Lotus template.
Okay, so we get it off of 10 and 5.
Under today's modules. All right, so far I see time, lifestyle, financial, location, and effort. That is good. Ooh, I see someone put something that I find interesting. I'm gonna, where am I gonna stick this one?
Wanda, is this the only assignment that we'll be using this template for, or we'll be using this program a lot more throughout the program?
We'll use Miro for something else. It'll be a different template in Miro, but we'll use Miro for one more thing.
Okay.
I like to bring in different tools. So as you guys go through the process, you kind of have a suite of tools to pull from, because I'm pretty certain this will not be the only time you guys go through. Most entrepreneurs have more than one business innovation idea that they're going to think through at some point in time in their life. And so I want you to have stuff where you can redo this whole process on your own. And so you have all the tools that you can, at your disposal to leverage for this. I'm going to zoom out a little bit more so I can see what we're working with. All right. I see a random green one here. I'm going to move that unless somebody had plans for it.
I think I made that and I didn't know where it went.
Okay.
And I forgot what I was going to write on it.
No worries.
Some about skill level, like how to, a lot of how to, don't know how to.
Okay.
What would that be for a header? I don't know. Skill, something.
Yeah, we could do that. And I'm going to move it over here and put no cooking skills next to it. And delete this one. It's just kind of hanging out by itself. All righty. So are we beginning to get the flow of this? So like all of a sudden you're starting to see, a litany of Post-its beginning to take shape into some common themes, right? So, oh, I know what I was going to do. I was going to create one on, this. Oh, there we go. Move this over here. All righty. Okay, while you guys are doing that, I'm going to get rid of some of these that are just taking up space so we can start to see what we're working with a little bit easier. Alrighty, where are we? Okay, ooh, we're running a long time. We're almost done. There's a few more things I'm going to show you to do with these so you can know how to prioritize them. All right, I think you guys have your clusters. Okay, this is good. So what we can then do is we first go to each cluster and we first see how many times we're seeing a theme that's repeated. So I'm going to go into, let me zoom in to time. So under time, we have time management, lack of time, takes too much effort, time management, no time to prepare fresh food, lunch options during workday or unhealthy consistency. So we have time management, lack of time are kind of similar. So we're just going to kind of put them there. Takes too much effort. Well, time management and time are the same. So we're going to put those right there. So essentially, these are kind of the same things. And that's important because if we have the same things that are being repeated, we want to recognize that, even if it's being said in different ways as it pertains to that subject. I'm not sure if effort and lack of time is the exact same thing, so I won't stack that, but we kind of have that. So we're going through and basically kind of looking if there's a theme that's being repeated, you want to kind of put it like right together so we kind of know where that goes. All right, I saw someone's move, take too much effort. What were your thoughts on that one? Why did you feel like that one didn't belong there?
I just put it in the effort category.
Okay, that's good. We did have an effort category. So let's look at the effort category. Under effort, we have laziness, lack of planning, specialty items, don't have convenience of bad food, meal prep, takes too much effort, calorie counting, confusing recipes. So anything there that's kind of like the same thing. Nope, I think these are all kind of individual thoughts. I thought I saw. So under time, we had lunch options during workday are unhealthy. Is that truly a time thing or is that an effort thing?
Maybe it's a lifestyle thing too.
Or
because you go to the
location.
office.
Location.
Or location. Yeah.
That's true.
I can see the benefit of having your headers all in a row because we're like kind of left, right. I see.
Yeah, I mean, and you can, again, and that's why I say kind of doing it with the Post-its real time first, so you can kind of see it a little easier. Sometimes with this, it's a little harder to navigate. But, you know, whichever way you want to be able to, you know, think about how to move those around. So essentially, because we're running a little time, I want us to kind of, you know, you would essentially kind of go through these, move things around. So as we're reflecting on, this could be this category or that category. So something like that, we can kind of either pull it out, just kind of have it on its own for a little bit as we start to reorganize our category, or we can leave it be. But you want to be able to first kind of see. And so what I initially like to do is I kind of go big picture. And so looking at everything here, what is some of our bigger categories? So it looks like location has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Post-its. Anybody, any of them are bigger than location?
No, lifestyle has 8. I think that's like the next biggest one.
All right, so location and lifestyle. So you kind of pay attention with the ones that a lot of people had something to say about, right? Because those you want to kind of hone in on. So if we go into lifestyle, and what are people saying about lifestyle? Occupation, preference for unhealthy food, busy work schedule. And so we start to see some things that overlap with some of these other categories. So then we have to make a decision. Does lifestyle stay its own, or do we disband some of these other categories that might fit with lifestyle? So is there anything else around here that seems to be similar to lifestyle? Time, right?
Family, no.
How so?
Family is a lifestyle. Some people who don't have kids, right?
Well, I want you to think about it in terms of the statements around lifestyle. So one of the things that we were having some questions about, right? Like when we were looking at, for example, lunch during the workday, is that time? Is that a lifestyle? Is that a location problem? If you start to look at time, and a couple of the time Post-its look like they might fit in a different category, then the question is, do you move those things and then disband time, right? So is time truly the issue, or is it time in reference to lifestyle, or time as it pertains to one of these other categories, right? And so that's where you're just kind of organizing and seeing some, and this is where you might have to go back to your notes. when they talked about time, what else were they talking about, right? If every time they talked about time, they talked about lifestyle, it's a no-brainer. If every time they talked about one category, the other category appeared, then you start to cluster those categories, right? But either way, you want to kind of go through, you find your bigger categories, and you start to see what are some things, and you rank them. So we said before, let me use my Post-its again, and I'll use my orange one. And so for that one, we said this was 8. Right, and I think we said location was 9. And it's not so much as the numbers matter, but you want to kind of pay attention. If everybody said something about location, then location is a feature, an aspect that you want to make sure you're honing in, right? Why is location so important to a barrier to eating healthy? Because if you'd have told me a barrier to eating healthy, location one might not have been something I thought of. But if everyone's thinking about it, then I need to know why that's such a big issue for everyone, right? And so that's kind of what you want to be able to do, is go through this and kind of start to rank them. And so you start to see like influence, there's 2. So what we would go through is kind of ranking all of these, right? But then even in time, even though time was only 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, these 3 were the same. And so you want to be able to acknowledge, like, of the 7, technically it's like 4, well, it's 7, but 3 repeats, right? And so you can kind of write that whichever way you need to remember here that it's 7, 3 repeats, or 3R, just so I know that, right? And so then I know, like, okay, the unique identifiers in here was time management, and then, these 1, 2, 4 other ideas. Essentially, what you're going to have is, as we kind of start to see here, you're going to have about 2 or 3 themes that bubble up, right? And so right now, because we haven't gone through the other categories, the top 2 are lifestyle and location, right? And so this is where we talked about, like, just kind of how the clustering helps us start to identify what are the things that, are very important or that are standing out to the people that we're interviewing. And then we know, as I start to think about the solution, I know whatever solution, again, I hadn't looked at the whole thing, but just what we looked at so far, whatever solution I was to come up to this problem I'm trying to solve, the barriers of eating healthy, it needs to address location and it needs to address lifestyle. Does that kind of make sense? I know this is kind of a quick pass at it, but I wanted you guys to kind of see a sample of how we start to use our interview data to inform our solution. Y'all are quiet. I see a lot of stuff moving on the screen. Talk to me. Are we lost? Are we confused? Are we hitting a point here?
I like it. I get it.
Yeah.
It's going to be very helpful. I like it.
Anybody confused with this? And again, this will start to make sense when you actually have your interview data and you've done your interviews, you have your data, it's organized. But I want you to see this next step, because as you're thinking through the kind of data you're collecting, if you can't begin to parse your data in a way that you can do these kind of things, you want to really think about, am I asking the right questions? Questions, concerns?
In regards to this, when we go ahead and break up the data that we received, because I'm trying to figure out how would we plug it in. I know you just use this as an example in terms of your question, like, what were the boundaries? But are we taking just one of the questions and then we're gonna dissect them this far down, or are we doing it as a, like, for our whole topic? I know that's a whole topic.
Your whole topic is trying to solve one problem.
Okay.
And so what was the problem you're trying to solve again? Remember where we started with you?
Yeah. Oh my God. I wrote it down. Hold on. I believe I was trying to locate my audience. Who will influence your project? Oh God, I know it's here somewhere.
So that's why we started with that. That honed us in, right? Like
Yes.
whatever the question that we started off trying to solve, we're organizing how our users worldview of this problem, right?
Okay.
What is important to them in this space?
Okay. I believe mine was the reality augmentation. And why would you need that?
Not our initial problem. Remember, it was kind of what's true right now, what's the goal, like that kind of
Yes.
problem.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, I see it right here. Thank you.
No worries.
Okay, so that's what we're doing, and then we're gonna move with the information that we receive, and then we'll just put it on here, pretty much.
Yeah. So
Okay.
you're going big, right? What's the big question, right?
Mhm.
Why are people doing X or not doing X? Or what is up with, ABC, right? And then you're asking people a bunch of different questions so you can understand the problem from their perspective. And then here's your way of capturing what they're saying, right?
Right.
And so is it, and I use the barriers to eating healthy, but that's kind of a breakdown of, a bigger problem that I'm trying to solve. And some of you are trying to solve multiple problems, but that's why I try to get you to hone in on one, because you start to see it bubble out into all these different things. Right. So if you're providing a service, I'll use Lisa as an example, right? And she's helping people declutter, right? And so it's kind of the problem there is, well, why are people, I forgot your question just that fast, Lisa.
Looking at this, though, I'm rethinking my questions, but it was kind of like, what tasks around their home do they want to get done? Or my problem, you mean? My problem statement? My problem statement was like, and I should have it quick, that most people have an area of clutter, that something in their house that makes them uncomfortable.
Okay. So if we were to kind of sum you up into one question, like, why do people live, and I know this isn't your question, but why do people live in a state of clutter? Why do people have, some aspect of clutter in their lives, right? And even though you're asking these different types of questions, essentially, they're all getting you to this point, right? You know what I mean? And so you're starting to unpack all the different things that they're saying and all the themes that emerge out of that in one space. And so if one of your questions is related to like, I'm trying
I had, well, one of them was, what are some tasks around your home that you wish were getting done?
Okay.
And then what specifically keeps it from happening?
Okay, so if you're asking people, what are some tasks around your home that you wish were done? And you're seeing some themes, that are coming out of that, that's those themes that are emerging, each one of those are a post-it.
Right.
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 And so what we're trying to see, what are some, not so much as everyone saying they want their dishes washed, but what are the themes that are emerging, right? Like, their whys, right? What are the things that they're saying is happening around that task?
Right. And one thing you didn't hear, but in my small group did, like, I was surprised to hear pain. A lot of people don't do not only house cleaning, but whatever the thing is, clean the leaves, the not weekly things, but like seasonal things because of pain. And that I heard in 4 out of 5 people. So that was like, oh, whoa, people are.
So then you would write that, the theme you would write. So first you would just write pain every time you saw it pop up on a different post-it, right? And then, you can kind of label that. You can kind of think of that initially kind of in terms of your feelings that are coming out, right? But then the pain in respect to what, right? What were the things that were kind of
prohibiting them from, okay. Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of different ways to do this. I just want you guys to be very strategic in how you're transferring this data that's kind of in, note form into a way that you can kind of grab these snapshots and organize them. Anybody else needs more help or thoughts on this?
Yeah, just off of like my situation. I have multiple, like, I guess, problems, and I understand that I need to like pick one.
Not really. You had one main problem, Chris. Your problem that you were trying to solve, if I remember it correctly, is artists, right? Or not necessarily just artists, but yes, artists. It was artists because it was even like people in sports, but we'll just say artists in general, right? Have a hard time sharing their work locally, right? That was, you're right, you did have more than one problem because you had more than one user. So from the perspective of your user, of the artist, they had a hard time sharing their work locally. And then your other user was the local people have a hard time finding out about these artists. So you were solving two problems because you had two user base, yes. So you would basically, for the artists, all the artists you interviewed, all the different things that emerge out of that would essentially be one of these boards. So as you're asking these artists these different questions, you know, how have you tried sharing it in the past? What have been some of your successes? What have been, you know, some of the barriers? All of these things that they're saying are going to each be a post-it, right? And then you're going to start to organize, okay, you know, the things that are coming out into groupings until you see, okay, this group all looks like they're talking about this one thing.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All righty, anybody else? Don't leave lost. If there's anybody else, I know some of you haven't done your interviews yet, so it's gonna be harder, which is why it's harder to make it concrete, but you know, we can revisit this at the beginning of next class. I just wanna make sure we're going out of this strong because I know some of you have some interviews lined up for the weekend, and so you're gonna be doing this on your own. And we'll make sure this video is available so that, the recording of this class is available if you need to revisit this. But Katie and I and JB are always available to assist you. If you feel like you walked away from a cooking show and have no clue where to start from square one, reach out to us. But any questions, concerns, or confusion on what to do next? Marnisha, you good? Sylvia, you good?
Are we still gonna be able to have like the one-on-ones again this week?
If you've already done your one-on-ones, yeah, actually, I think if there's room on my schedule, I'll definitely, because I know this is kind of a tricky space. Thank you for the thumbs up, ladies. I see y'all, for some of you to navigate. So if you've had one and you want another one, feel free just to kind of get through this, this piece. But again, remember, if your question doesn't necessarily, if you just kind of have a question, you don't necessarily need a one-on-one, Katie's always kind of there in tech support mode or reach out for a phone call or send a flare in the air.
That's it.
A quick question, just so for next class, finish our interviews and map it out with the Post-it notes and with this Miro template.
Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up. So yes, I want you to use the Post-it notes so you can, because like I said, this is a cool tool to do collaboratively, but sometimes when you're trying to do things real time, and it's your call, right? If you feel like you don't need to Post-it notes and you're good with this, that's cool. But this is a way that we can kind of see, you know, your direction. What you can do here is, where is it? Once you do it here, you can download this as a PDF as soon as I find the tab. And you can send us that PDF so we can, and you can upload that. Right here on top. So where it says Lotus template, export this board, save as PDF, or you can save it as an image, actually, it doesn't really matter. And that's what you're going to upload so we kind of see where you landed.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you. I forgot to mention that.
Will we have access to this template as like a reference?
Sure, I can share this. I mean, this template is not complete because we just kind of did it impromptu, but I could definitely save it and share it.
I have a quick question. I can't seem to find education and training. I went to all templates?
You don't necessarily need that. That was probably just to get you here. So if you can
Okay.
get here without that, you don't need that.
Oh, but I mean, this, I went through the link, but I'm signed in.
Doesn't matter. Is you could just click on, if you're signed in, you can click on a link and just create a new board. I think with the
Oh, and just start, I'm at a blank board then. Oh, I get it. Okay.
Yeah, you can start a blank board and you can use the Lotus template. You can use, I think on the free one, you can create up to 3 boards. And so if you already, like this one, you did kind of on mine, but if you want to start your own board, you can do that if you want to, whichever way, like you have options. And like I said, you get up to 3 boards. We're going to use Miro one more time for another activity. So that'll be your second board. And at the end of class, you can download these, wipe the boards, do whatever else with them if you want. You have your options. I just want you guys to have access to the tools. Any other questions? All righty. I think we're good.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Not everyone.
This was helpful. Thank you.
You're very welcome.